The Return of the Mount Hua Sect. Chapter 127. The Sword of Mount Hua is Strong. Wei Lip-san, unable to sleep all throughout the night, stared up at the sky with bloodshot eyes. The sun was already in the middle of the sky. This is insane. Yesterday, Wei Lip-san found himself swept along by the atmosphere Chongmyung's party had created and nodded his head along with them. It should have been impossible for a man his age to lose himself and fall into the rhythm of some children as young as his son. But these weren't any ordinary people. In the end, Chongmyung fell asleep after raiding the Hua Sect's warehouse and emptying all their liquor bottles. It was even scarier that his Sahyongs were there, yet no one stopped him. Is this really all right? Mount Hua's disciples had clearly behaved excessively yesterday. Hadn't they hurled such venomous words at the Wudang disciples? Even Wei Lip-san would be unable to escape retribution after such insults. If a fight occurs, the disciples of Mount Hua will not be safe. But Wei Lip-san opened the window. He looked out and saw the disciples of Mount Hua who had come out early to bask in the sun. Jogul, who was yawning heavily with droopy eyes, looked at Yunjung. When are they coming? Didn't they say they would come today? The sun's already up. They said they would come at the same time as yesterday, so there's still a lot of time left. If you have nothing to do, go and sleep. I made a habit of waking up early. I can't sleep now. What a sad story. It was unknown how he felt about it, but Jogul's body had become faithfully accustomed to Chongmyung's methods. The sad fact was that it wasn't just him. Yunjung was the same. What about Chongmyung? Sleeping. It'd be even weirder if he was awake after drinking that much. Go and wake him. The Wudang will be here soon. Would he even wake up if I ask him to? Pour water on him. Okay. Wei Lip-san quietly closed the window. Father, I don't know anymore. It felt like his deceased father was looking down at him from the sky. Suddenly, Yeonpyeong and Wei So-heng entered as the door opened. Father! What is it? What should we do? The Wudang will attack us soon. Shouldn't we fight together? Wei Lip-san took a deep breath. Actually, he hadn't yet decided what to do. In fact, it was Mount Hua who provoked the Wudang, not the Hua Sect. In the worst-case scenario, as long as they are prepared to leave Nanyang, they could withdraw without participating in the battle. At least then, the Hua Sect might not suffer much damage. If they say they will leave Nanyang on their own, even the Wudang sect will not persecute the Hua Sect. But if they fought, then everyone would need to be prepared to suffer some damage. Wei Lip-san and Wei So-heng, in particular, would need to be prepared to shed their blood. What should I do? A deep sense of agony tormented him. In the end, Wei Lip-san was unable to decide and looked at his son. What do you think we should do? It wasn't a question asked with high expectations. It was just a light question, released in a moment of overwhelming confusion. But his son's answer was more serious than he thought. I think we should fight. And the reason? They are the guests and we are the owners. It would be unacceptable for the owner to flee the battle and watch from the sidelines while the guests who came here to help are fighting for them. And Wei So-heng spoke again. The reason I respected my father and cherished the Hua Sect is because my father and I were equally proud of this place. Father never felt bad for supporting the ruined Mount Hua, nor did you expect anything for it, because we belong to Mount Hua. Yes, even if we are a simple subsect, a disciple is a disciple. How can we just stay by and watch them fight? Wei Lip-san turned his head. He found it difficult to look his son in the eyes at this moment. I met the sect leader. Without any hesitation, the sect leader sent the disciples to help us. Their method may not be right, but their hearts aren't wrong. Even if I die today, it will be at their side. I will fight. I'm ashamed of myself. This was what Wei Lip-san thought. While Wei Lip-san turned away and hid from the crisis, Wei So-heng was alone in defending the virtues his father had taught him to uphold. How could he not feel ashamed? Yeonpyeong. Yes, sect leader. Tell the disciples, those who want to fight can stay, and those who don't may return home. Sect leader. We will not hold anyone responsible if they leave, and if the Hwa sect survives today, we will accept them back without any conditions. Then no one will stay. No. Wei Lip-san smiled. I will stay, and so will So-heng. That's enough. We will fight for the name of Mount Hwa. Yeonpyeong shook his head. You two should do that. Will you leave? I will fight for the name of the Hwa sect, not for Mount Hwa. The weather is fine today, sect leader. After falling silent for a time, Wei Lip-san smiled and nodded. I know. Wei Lip-san, who was looking at the sky, seemed determined. Such nice weather. I don't feel well. Stop drinking so much, you drunk bastard. Chongmyeong grabbed his head. Don't shout. My head is ringing. Did you have to drink alcohol amid all this? We need to fight soon. I can just sober up. Chongmyeong snapped his fingers, and a translucent haze rose from his fingers. He cleansed the alcohol, poisoning his body. Baekchun watched the scene and stood up. With a more serious tone than ever, he spoke. Everyone listen. Yes, until now, no matter what you did, I didn't speak up. But it's different now. Today's fight isn't just our fight. Don't forget that we fight with the name of Mount Hwa on our backs. We will keep that in mind. Jo-gul, Yoon-jung, and Yoo Yi-sol looked determined. Even Chongmyeong nodded with a smile. Sect leaders said that this would signal to the world that Mount Hwa has resumed external activities. Baekchun looked at Chongmyeong. Chongmyeong. I know, gently. No. Huh? Chongmyeong looked at Baekchun with wide eyes. If you are going to do it perfectly. Oh? It was strange to hear such words from Baekchun. It's inevitable that they will lose. If that's the case, it's better to do it perfectly and cleanly. But sect leader told me not to. Wasn't it you that said the sect leader probably wants to see those Wudang bastards get their skulls cracked before he crosses the river? Oh? Chongmyeong smiled. I like this. In the past, Baekchun was a man that was overly obsessed with fairness and impartiality. However, after a short couple of years of Chongmyeong's corrosive influence, he had begun to ignore the sect leader's words. No, he learned to interpret them better. Wow, the sect will be running wild. Chongmyeong smiled. But do you understand what that means? What do you mean? That Mount Hwa is ready to resume external activities. Isn't it literal? Chongmyeong smiled bitterly. External activity means that we're interested in the world outside the sect. But what kind of action can Mount Hwa take? Well, didn't you see the Hwa sect? You mean the subsects? Chongmyeong nodded. Right, we're going to increase the sect's influence. Then the same thing that's happening now will happen again, but with the positions reversed. That means the good old days where our only concerns were training are over. By the good old days, you mean that training? Wasn't that training the best time? You're crossing the line. Chongmyeong flinched at the intense backlash over his comments. It was then, with Wei Lip-san at the head, Wei So-heng, Yeonpyeong, and roughly 10 disciples of the Hwa sect approached them with grim expressions. Wei Lip-san, who arrived right in front of Chongmyeong, moved towards Baekchun. Disciple Baekchun, I was so distracted that I couldn't properly tend to my duties. I bow my head to express my gratitude to you, your party, and even Mount Hwa for rushing to assist us in the Hwa sect's time of need. As Wei Lip-san bowed his head, Baekchun immediately reached out and made him stand tall. Don't do this, sect leader. We just did what we had to do. I don't know what the outcome today will be, but I will lead the Hwa sect and fight alongside you all. There was no hesitation to be found on Wei Lip-san's face. Seeing that good expression on his face, Baekchun also felt at ease. As expected, it seemed like it was true that this man had the qualities of a great leader. It made sense. If this man was lacking, then he would never have been able to rouse any support to fight alongside him. Thank you, sect leader. Wow! Chongmyeong applauded. As expected of such a loyal person. Baekchun had the distressing thought that the word loyal sounded like money when it came from Chongmyung. But, Chongmyung scratched his head. The number. Those who want to leave have left. Still, this many chose to stay. Chongmyung nodded his head. It's a good place and they're good people. Chongmyung spoke in a distant manner that seemed a bit faint as the others focused on him. No, well, Chongmyung, who was about to say something, just smiled and laughed. It was the same with Mount Hua in the past. Maybe it was just Chongmyung's idea of the sect, but even the current Mount Hua is the same. Well, it doesn't look like you can do anything special though. What? How do I explain? Just watch and you'll know soon enough. Chongmyung turned his head and shrugged. Soon after, his eyes centered on the sect's main gate. Looks like they're coming. You can feel them already. They're coming from the front. Aren't you a bit too relaxed? Monstrous bastard. Baekchun shook his head. He still couldn't feel anything yet, but Chongmyung already seemed to have the entire situation within his grasp. Hell, he was drunk until just a moment ago. They're coming. Baekchun, Yoonjung, Jogul, and Yu Yisol stepped forward and put their hands on the swords around their waist. Since everything that needed to be said had already been discussed, the Wudang would come rushing in, ready for battle. There's nothing to be nervous about. Baekchun spoke softly. Don't forget your training. We won't lose to anyone. We are disciples of the great Mount Hua. Yes, Sasuk. Yes, Sayang. The disciples each had a determined look in their eyes. The playfulness that was present just a short while ago had faded. Only the cold demeanor and resolve of a swordsman remained. Baekchun now sensed the enemy's ki as well. Get ready! Everyone's eyes were locked onto the main gate. Reflected in their eyes was the sight of the Wudang disciples, dressed in black robes, jumping high over the main gate. 3 of them. Take them one by one. Suddenly, it was at that moment. Racha! There was an ominous sensation that something crazy was happening from behind before something hazy flew out towards the disciples of Wudang that were crossing the sect's walls. Bang, bang, bang. The Wudang disciples were thrown back out at twice the speed they had charged in. The 4 disciples of Mount Hua felt their tension deflate and their ki began to dissipate as if it was running away. Huh? When he saw their reactions, Chongmyung tilted his head. Should I have let them in first? Ugh, you brat. Are you going to do it all yourself?